Trust me, the desire of finding a treasure buried in land and in the sea, so deep into the imaginary of everyone, of people, a life-size crucifix of solid gold. Let's be real. Spaniards were no rookies in the naval activity. They were very good at it. Not like a spoiler, but I tell you, I have copies of this document that the friar wrote. Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will be talking about one of the most famous treasures hidden in Cuba, the treasure of the Merida Cathedral in Mexico. So let's dive into it. In a previous episode, in the one about the Cuban Atlantis, I mentioned the Merida treasure slightly, and I said I will make an episode on the Merida treasure, and this is this episode. So I want you to be attentive because the Merida treasure is one of the treasures in Cuba which has been more ingrained into people. People really believe of the existence of this treasure. Many of them know where it is, or at least the area where the treasure should be. And I want to bring this treasure to you and analyze because the story is very interesting. It is backed up by documents, which makes it to the eyes of people much more credible. I want to share this with you and debunk this story of the Merida treasure. So let's get into this. Which is the story of the Merida treasure? In a nutshell, in the year 1642, in the Merida Cathedral in the Merida city, Mexico, they were very worried because there was apparently an imminent attack from pirates and they didn't want their treasures that were stored in the cathedral to fall in the hands of the pirates, so they needed to protect it somehow. So they decide to send this treasure to Havana, to the Cathedral of Havana, in 3 ships. They did that. The pirates start chasing these 3 ships and they start attacking them, and they estimated that they couldn't reach Havana with this chase. They couldn't reach Havana, so they decide to stop in the Guanacabibes Peninsula in the western end of Cuba and hide the treasure somewhere, and that way keeping it out of the pirates' reach. They did that. They hid the treasure in a cave, and then the pirates arrive. They kill everyone but one person, a friar, who barely made it to the Guane town in the province of Pinal del Rio in Cuba, to the church of the Guane town. He managed to get there in very bad condition because he went through a lot of jungle. And he arrived there, he made a report of what had happened, where the treasure was, and make an account of everything. And later on, he died because of the fevers and all these hardships he went through and exhaustion. So the papers, these documents that he referred to that event, stay in the church of Guane. And then later on, these documents, as usual, disappeared. They supposedly went from family to family and from owner to owner. And that is how the story goes. The treasure that he mentioned that the ships were carrying to the cathedral in Havana were made by, for instance, a life-size crucifix of solid gold, 5 chests of jewels.
I just find it funny in all of these stories, the ones that are harder to track and to prove realistically, the most incredible treasures are lost. The ones that we have never
Exactly.
even seen or have anything to compare to, those are the ones that are lost and can't be found. How interesting.
That
How
that's that's
convenient.
why that's why these stories survive and go through the centuries, and people want to keep them alive because it's such a unique scene that people would obviously like it to be true.
Of course, of course. And it's just those parallels that make these stories that live on so funny to me. It's like, okay, don't we all see it as a little bit convenient that the best treasure that has never been found has the coolest stuff? Like, come on.
Exactly. So the treasure was, among other things, this life-size crucifix
Yeah.
made of solid gold, 5 chests of jewels, 20 olive jars or botijas, as they are referred in the documents, botijas, which is an olive jar full of gold coins, and around 200 gold ingots. Okay, there's plenty, much more stuff, but these are the highlights of the treasure.
I
So,
have one question.
yep.
Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, or I could just Google it. What is a friar? It's a Catholic denomination, right?
Yeah, it's like in Spanish is fraile. Yeah, it's a friar. I mean, it's a low-ranking officer from the church.
Okay, and that's gonna lead to my question. That's why I wanted to make sure that I understood the position. Although I didn't know the word too well, I understood the position. Why would he know how much gold is in the ship?
Well, in
That's part of his
theory,
responsibility?
yes,
Ah,
in
okay.
theory,
Okay.
the Merida Cathedral people would send these treasures to the Havana Cathedral. So they would send friars or church
To accompany it.
officers to accompany it, and they will obviously know what was transported in the ship to deliver to the other place.
No, that makes sense. I was just trying to already poke a hole into the story simply because I was like, okay, is that the responsibility of that position to definitely know what's on the boat? So, okay, so that is accounted for. That does make sense. Okay.
That is
The
probably
only true
one of
thing.
one of the few things mentioned in the story that, yeah, that would be true. Obviously, they
That
would
would make
have a
sense.
friar or some people from the church to custody the treasure until delivered to the new place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one, it doesn't really ring any wrong bell.
Yeah.
But
Just to me that
okay.
doesn't know.
But okay, this is the story. This is the story everyone knows. I can tell you how deeply rooted this story is in the people. I went to the Guanacavives Peninsula and interviewed the inhabitants from the place regarding another story, like the Perjuicio treasure and the pirates in the western end of Cuba. And obviously, the Merida treasure came up because it's supposedly in a cave in their area where they live. And it's incredible because everyone who I interviewed and they brought up this Merida treasure story, they told the same story, the story I have just told you. You know, that they were in 1642, they were afraid of the attack of the pirates, they sent this treasure to be in a safer place in Havana, in the cathedral in Havana, Cuba. They sent 3 ships, 2 pirate ships were chasing them. Because of this chase, they decide to bury the treasure or to hide it in a cave in the Guanacavives Peninsula. Everyone died afterwards. The treasure was made by this life-size crucifix, solid gold, plus the 5 chests of jewels, plus the 20 olive jars full of gold coins and the 200 gold ingots. And then this friar ended up in the church in the Guane town in Pinar del Rio, and he wrote down everything and gave these documents to the people in the church, and then he died because of his bad condition after this very difficult trip he made. Okay, this story with little variations, but you can hear it from everyone around. Everyone in the Guanacavives Peninsula knows about this story in these pretty much the same terms. One can put a little bit more gold here or put less gold, but the entire thing is the same. Not like a spoiler, but I tell you, I have copies of this document that the friar wrote and they were lost. So I will show them to you later in the video and we will talk about that. So with this story, when you have this story and the certainty of the people, there are people, trust me, the desire of finding a treasure buried in land or in the sea or in the galleon or whatever, it is so deep into the imaginary of us, of everyone, of people. You have that since a very early age, like, being afraid of the dark, or the boogeyman, or I don't know, the things that people believe, the fairy tales, that since you are a kid. But apparently these treasure stories, they linger longer in our life, and many people devote their lives and their resources and their energy in trying to find these treasures. So, as I have also mentioned in other episodes, it is necessary when you get these stories and you get whatever proof or evidence you think you have about the treasure or simply a shipwreck, that you should detach a little bit from your desire of finding the thing and try to analyze the story itself, but from a little bit of a cold point of view and not trying to match whatever the story said to your beliefs.
Yeah.
So get as little bias as you can.
Yeah, I think a healthy dose of skepticism when trying to read and understand and analyze the data of things that are social sciences or things that are not very easily proven. I think that is just smart and healthy to then not feel like a silly goose when whatever you were thinking is completely wrong.
Well, that's what I have always give this advice to anyone, because I know how romantic and how attractive this is.
How
I
cool
know
it
this
would
is,
be
yeah,
if it were
is
true.
it is my job. I feel very privileged because what I do is exactly going through these stories and try to find out what is true. And when it's true,
Yeah.
it's super interesting to find these
Of
things and to
course.
study them. That is super cool. Okay, but now let's go through this story and see the statements in the story, and let's think about them, analyze them a little bit. I will do that with you, and you will see that you don't need to be an archaeologist or an historian to apply some common sense in just the story that is being told to you, and that's been going from century to century about the same event or potential event. Let's start by, okay, in 1642, the people in the Merida Cathedral in Mexico, they were worried, or they were afraid of an imminent attack of pirates to their cathedral, and they wanted to protect the treasure. Cool. So what they did, to put all that treasure in 3 ships and
in
send
the
it
ocean.
to the sea.
Let's put it right in their habitat.
Where the pirates are.
Yeah. Why?
Why not to send it to Mexico City?
And Mexico that is full of cenotes. Mexico is full of caves. Why would you send it anywhere?
Why you would send it to Havana in Cuba through the pirate territory? If you are afraid of pirates, instead of sending it to Mexico City, which was very well protected
Inland.
and inland, with a caravan, with soldiers protecting that treasure. I mean, since the very, very, very beginning, that sounds off. I mean, that wouldn't be a decision you would make. And let's be real, the Spaniards, they cannot be that dumb because they conquered America. So you don't do that being dumb. You have to have some sort of intelligence and make the right decisions, not to send your treasure right in the face of the pirates you're fearing.
And at the bare minimum, if my math is not failing me, 1642, they have had 200 years to figure out how to transport stuff. The Spaniards have been in America for a while now and transporting treasures.
Of course.
Even if trying to go back to what you were saying, even if they were quote unquote dumb or inexperienced, by now they have had more than enough experience to not make such a mistake.
Of course, who in their right mind will send your most precious treasure right through pirate-infested waters to save it? No, you save it the other way around. You send it inland where you have a capital, where you have Mexico City with millions of soldiers and means and resources to protect that treasure. You don't send it right in the face of the pirates. But then the story continued. It says it was sending 3 ships, and then 2 pirate ships were chasing them and attacking them. Let's be real. Spaniards were no rookies in the naval activity. They were very good at it. So if you have 3 ships and you have 2 pirate ships chasing you, what's the fuss? What's the problem?
Why wouldn't they be able to defend themselves?
What are you running away so helplessly when you have
Yeah.
2 pirate ships? They will fight them back and neutralize that threat, because there were 3 ships against 2 pirate ships. But okay, that's probably a minor thing. Let's keep on going with the story. They estimated that they will not make it to Havana without the pirates getting hold on them and taking the treasure.
Okay.
And then their decision was to go to an unknown place, which is the Guadalcanal Peninsula,
Which
in
is
the western
further?
side of the country. No. It's
It's closer.
Way. It's in the way. Yeah,
Okay.
It's in the way to Havana. They have to go through there anyway.
Yeah.
But to go to an unknown area, and it was not only unknown to them, it's unknown to us today. It's a very wild territory, it's uninhabited, it's a crazy place to go, it's a very dense jungle.
In 2024, can you imagine in 1642? Like less habited even.
There we go. So they decide to go there and anchor their boats and find a proper place to hide the treasure, download that treasure, put it there, so the pirates will not get it. Okay, if you are in a situation in which you estimate that you cannot get to Havana before the pirates get you don't have a lot of time.
And how long would it take you to unload a life-size crucifix made out of solid gold?
Well,
like what?
We will get
there.
But first, you have to go to this Guadalcanal Peninsula, which you don't know. I tell you because I do know the Guadalcanal Peninsula very well. You have to go there, find a proper place to anchor your boats, which is not something you will find straight away. You have to find a proper place to anchor your boats, then send someone to land and go walking around to find a proper cave that you can hide the treasure in the cave. This could take you a week. So the pirates who are chasing you, what are they doing during this week? Just like waiting for you to find the place, or they were not that close, or what happened? So I'm trying to put you guys here in context. It's simple common sense. You have to go and then arrive to land and find a place to hide your treasure. But you have the pirates breathing on your neck, otherwise you wouldn't make that decision.
Yeah.
So how come you managed to get to land with 3 ships, you get to land, you send people to find a cave, because certainly you don't know a cave. Okay, in the Guadalcanal Peninsula, I can tell you, it's karstic, there are a lot of caves, that's true, but you can walk around the Guadalcanal Peninsula for days
without seeing
one cave.
Yeah, I was just about to say, without noticing a single cave.
Yeah, and then you can stumble on a cave that could be big enough so you can put your treasures in. Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they found the cave in one morning. Mm-hmm. So they arrived there, they found the proper cave, they came back to the boats, they unload all the treasure. Now we will talk about the treasure. The life-size crucifix made of solid gold. I made some math many years ago when this Merida treasure story came to us, because remember, we got these documents. So just the statue, the figure of Christ would have weighed 2 tons. The cross where this statue will go to make the entire crucifix,
another 4.
It must have been at least another 2 tons.
Yeah.
Otherwise it will break.
Correct. So that's why I said 4.
Minimum, it will be another 2 tons. Okay,
yeah.
4 tons of gold or 4 tons of anything in the same object. I mean, this is equivalent to a pickup truck, a Ram 4500. It's a pickup truck without wheels, so you cannot just push it.
Totally.
You have to go with it through the jungle and put it in a cave, plus all this other treasure I told you, which is also very heavy. So from the logistic point of view, it would be a nightmare to do that, to actually achieve, to bring all this treasure down from the ships and put it safely in a cave.
Now that you're saying that, and the people died after the unload.
Yeah, no, they were killed. They didn't die.
Well, they were killed. No, I'm just trying to understand how the Fry moved those treasures by himself. So he didn't.
No. We
there
are
were
talking
people alive.
probably around 100 people because there were 3 ships, so 3 crews.
Yeah.
Let's put 100 people doing all that. Okay, even 100 people, you take around 4,500 and on your shoulders and try to get it through the jungle to put it inside the cave. Yeah. So let's say that all this took some time, long time, probably 3-4 weeks. And then the pirates, which were really far behind, because in these 3-4 weeks, these ships from the Spaniards with the treasure would have made it to Havana. Certainly. It was not that far. They would have gone through Havana. But okay, they decided to lose 3 weeks in the Guanacabibes Peninsula and putting some treasure in a place that they will not be able to come back. But after that, the pirates arrived. They were really angry because the Spaniards have already hid the treasure somewhere, and they killed them all. And from all these people that they killed, not even one told them, hey, sorry, it's there. It's in that cave. I mean, I would have done it.
Yeah, of course. Nobody wanted to save themselves. They were just like, oh, for the love of the cross, I'm going to die, or what?
All of them were martyrs.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't say anything. I can tell you, pirates could be very persuasive when they wanted to get some information out of you. But in this case, it didn't happen. They killed everyone. They left without the treasure. And this poor friar went about 150 kilometers to the town of Guane, and then he wrote down the account of what happened. Okay, you will agree with me that together with the decision of the Spaniards sending the treasure through the faces of the pirate to another place instead of saving that treasure in a better place inland, this together with all this timing, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It's not viable. It's not something you can trust that will happen. It doesn't make sense.
There's enough holes in the logic for it not to hold up. There are less check marks that you need to check in production for a product for it to be viable to go to sale than this story has. You know what I mean? Like, this story would have not passed any checkup of anything production because it's too unstable, too many holes in the logic. It wouldn't have gone for production.
Unless it's a treasure. People love treasure stories to be
true.
Okay, then let's go to another aspect in the story. 20 olive jars full of gold coins. Okay, guys, gold coins were not transported in olive jars.
Yeah.
Olive jars were meant, for oil from olives, sometimes wine, sometimes brine, sometimes water.
Liquids.
Never for coins.
Yes.
Yeah, never for coins. It is very difficult to handle olive jar full of gold coins. Do you imagine how much that weighs? In a very difficult thing to handle, coins were transported in crates or in chests or in boxes or in bags.
Is this of putting gold coins in olive jars something that repeats itself in stories for any reason? Because people misunderstand. Why would... Yeah, please.
Yes. Why this belief exists?
Where does it come from? Yeah.
It's from a much later practice. It comes from wealthy people who lives in the countryside, and they will not go to a bank. There were not banks at the time, or at least not available to them. So they will put their savings, their gold coins and stuff inside an olive jar, and they will put it in the ground somewhere that they will find them later on.
So it's a common chronological misunderstanding from people.
Yes, that is a practice that came much later. And people has always identified botijas, the word botijas, with treasure, because a few of them, very few of them, but a few of them has been found, inside this ceramic container with coins inside.
Yeah.
Okay, since
yeah.
the time of the Romans. But this was not the way that the Spaniards transported coins or treasure.
Yeah.
They never put coins inside the olive jars to transport it from one country to another. This is another thing within the story, within the document, within the legend, let's call it this way, that it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. You can say, okay, 200 gold ingots, yes, that was more or less normally the type of volumes that they transported. 5 chests of jewels, it looks a little bit excessive, but well, one never knows what the church might have.
Sure. In storage.
In storage. Yeah. So, like the same for the 200 gold ingots. But okay, this is just applying common sense to the story that has been passed from people to people and century to century. The story itself doesn't hold. All these things that I have mentioned, you can analyze it as well. You can see, you don't need to be an archaeologist or an historian. You can see that these kind of things don't happen. Why you would put all together in a story
and make it fit.
Yeah, and make it fit. Just only could be because you want it to be true.
Exactly.
If you want it to be true, you will believe in whatever you believe.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who believe in this world of anything. So, okay, and now let's go to a little bit into the technical part of it. First, and very important, there is no record in any archive, not in the Mexican archives or in the Spanish archives, of such an event, of the church needing to take the treasures from the Merida Cathedral and send them in a rush to the Havana Cathedral, right? That never happened, or that was never registered. And if it was not registered, it's because it didn't happen. Because the guys in the Cathedral of Merida, they respond to a boss, Pope. They will not allow life-size crucifix made in solid gold just to disappear without paperwork.
Yeah.
Without paperwork behind it, to sustain it, to tell your boss, hey, sorry, the crucifix I sent it to Havana, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's not my fault. So there is no track, there is no archival track on that. This by itself should be like a no-no. You don't go after this story because this never happened. And last but not least, I will show you the documents now of this, because our company, Carisub, we got hold on these documents from this friar, the friar that wrote the documents, and they got lost, Well, we were a government company who had the task of looking for every treasure in the country, being in the sea or being in land. So we got hold on those manuscripts, on those documents with the treasure map and everything and the description of what happened. And that person clearly says there that the treasures were transported from the Merida Cathedral to the Havana Cathedral for protection. There is only one problem here, that in 1642, it was 140 years before Havana Cathedral was built. Havana Cathedral was built in 1777 and was consecrated in 1784. So that makes it 140 years. And unless the clerks of the Merida Cathedral were time travelers,
ancient aliens,
either they were time travelers or they estimated the trip to Havana to take quite long, 140 years. It was in writing in the document. From the Merida Cathedral to the cathedral in San Cristobal de La Habana, which didn't exist and will not exist for another 140 years. So guys, folks, there is no Merida treasure hidden in any place in Cuba, in any cave. If you like that and you want to really pursue a treasure, find a better one. Don't spend your time, your resources, your energy in this one. Just put it in something better. Maybe, I don't know, building a house for you or something. But don't do that. There is no treasure to be found. The story itself is full of holes, but it's built in this document that, I don't want even to go into the technicalities of the writing of the document, the calligraphy of the document. You will see it. I put it already in the video. You will see that the calligraphy is like the 4-year-old kid. And these clerks that they write things down, they were highly educated.
Totally.
This is not something that just looking at it, you will see
It's a fake.
That-
So that's your not your theory or your assumption or your view is that those documents are forged.
It is a hoax.
Yeah.
It is something that was made minimum after the Cathedral of Havana was built.
Yeah, otherwise there's no
100
point. Yeah. Makes sense.
There would be no way that someone would know that Havana would have a cathedral in
Yeah,
this
of
year.
course.
So it was made afterwards and make look old. And I don't know. I mean, who can guess what goes to people's mind to make this kind of things? Or, you know, like 3-century-old joke.
Somebody found this guy's draft for his new novel that he wanted to make about the Spaniards and the Mexicans and the Cubans, and everybody took it seriously, way too seriously. They put it in the historical archives. No, sir.
Someone must be laughing in heaven, or maybe in hell,
Or maybe
whatever.
hell, we don't know, but they're laughing.
It would be laughing at us. So, yes, folks, I wanted to tell you this story because it is simple and at the same time it's very complex to understand why it has survived for so many centuries, why so many people are in love with this story. They're really making serious efforts to try to find a treasure that there is no way that could be anywhere in Cuba or it didn't exist. Just the sole mention of the life-size crucifix in solid gold, it should have ring every bell for everyone to put every alarm on, because you don't have that in the Vatican today. You don't have that
Let alone back then.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So why in the Merida Cathedral and being sent through the pirate faces to the unexistent cathedral in Havana? So guys, this is the Merida Cathedral treasure legend debunk. Don't go after it. Don't waste your time. There are much better stories to follow and to research. So if you like the video, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, share it with your friends and to whoever you think it might find it interesting, and let's keep on diving.